Hello, Google Mongolia is reporting Mongolian Economic Forum 2016 live from the State Palace. I'm here with Mr. Vivek, Director East Asia Pacific International Finance Corporation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you.
So, Mongolian Economic Forum has been organizing since 2010, and this is the seventh time. So what is your intake? How significant do you think this event is?
So I think this is probably the most powerful and important event from an economic perspective that Mongolia organizes. It gets together a plethora and a very wide variety of people. It gets government, it gets the private sector, it gets think tanks, it gets economists, and last but not least, it gets the IFIs like ourselves, the ADB, in one room to discuss issues. It gets parliamentarians in, which is very important, to have the voice of the people, to discuss issues, to discuss ideas, and to exchange views. So I think this is probably the single most important event that Mongolia organizes.
My next question is, Mongolia's economy has been declining since 2014, and we made some bad foreign investment policies. And how do you think we can manage to change that and invite all the international investors back into the economy?
So I think the change process has already started. I think the fact that Rio is back on track with the Oyo Tolgoi mine is a very important indicator. I think the world at large was watching on how this project will go, and I think the news is very positive. The project, the phase 2, is back on track, and I think that's a huge indication to other investors that Mongolia is open for business, that it's serious, that it wants to attract foreign investors to come in. I think this is the single biggest thing that the government has done to attract foreign investors back in. Going forward, I think what will be crucial is stability of policy, openness, transparency, and a level playing field. And if all these factors can be put in place, I think Mongolia will be able to attract a lot more foreign investment in the years to come.
Yes, I agree. And Mongolia is a democratic country. It's celebrating the 26th year this year, 2016. And the transparent policy is one of the most important things to attract international audience and organizations. So do you think Mongolian government is implementing enough transparency to the international organization and audiences?
I think at one level, the government is doing a lot. Things are moving in the right direction. And I think it's very important for us to step back and understand that Mongolia is a relatively young democracy. Like you said, it's 26 years of democratic rule. And these reforms take time. This is not an overnight process, and I don't think we should expect it to be overnight. These things take time. Things have to be paced out. Government knows best. They should be doing things at a pace which is acceptable to people. So a lot has been done in terms of transparency. At the same time, I'd like to add that clearly more can be done. But I think the government is by and large on the right path in terms of transparency.
Like you said, what more can we do more to improve the current economic situations? Like, can you name 3 examples that we should focus more on?
So I think the single most important thing the government can do is to look to the long term. And that's what I said in my talk earlier, that it's very important we move away from the next 6 months and look at the next 3, 6, 10 years. And to that extent, I think the government needs to diversify away from mining, reduce its dependence on mining, I would say, not diversify away. And the 3 or 4 sectors that we think have a great opportunity and potential here one is tourism. Clearly, there's a huge potential. Mongolia is a place where a lot of people want to visit, and I think the government should, and I hope they will, work towards making this a tourist destination. The second is working to increase the share of agriculture, both domestic and potentially for exports. Mongolia has a lot of land. Some of it is not very arable, but there are new farming techniques that have come in which can make this productive land. And the whole area of meat processing is a thing that I think the government can do a lot, is to make it more systematic, improve the supply chain, consistent quality, and eventually put Mongolia on the map for these 2-3 sectors. The other much longer term play is really how does Mongolia utilize its human capital and there it can become an IT hub eventually. It can become a financial services hub. It can become a knowledge hub because it has smart, young, educated people. So that's a longer term play. It'll need better connectivity. So these are the few things that we think the government can do. But I would like to add that in order for the government to do most of these things, there has to be a lot more investment in infrastructure. So whether it's improving connectivity within Mongolia, whether it's improving connectivity outside of Mongolia by air, by road transport, clearly the government needs to invest in these sectors today. And I would say this is the time these investments should be made. So as the commodity prices start to look up again, Mongolia will be very well positioned to capitalize on the next boom.
Not just depend on the mining sector alone.
I would hope and I would strongly encourage and I would encourage us to play a role in getting Mongolia to reduce dependence on mining.
And focus on the long term, not the short one.
The short term is also important because in order to get to the long term, you have to survive the short term.
Yes.
But really, I think the ultimate goal should be to understand where will we as a country be 5, 7, 10 years from now and start implementing those changes today so that come 5, 7 years from now, the country is in a much better path to prosperity.
I agree. This is my last question I would like to ask. What kind of works are in place or already being implemented by IFC in Mongolia?
So we continue to focus on the financial sector and how do we get small and medium enterprises to do better, to give them access to finance. And this is important because we think small and medium enterprises should also benefit from the mining boom. So how do they benefit when a large company like Rio Tinto invests many billions of dollars? Are they part of the supply chain? So that's one area of focus for us going forward. The second that we will continue to do is the whole agricultural space. So there right now we're looking more at technical assistance, limited investments, but that's something that we will continue to focus on. So these would be the two most immediate areas. We will continue to support the banking sector as we've done in the past, and we will continue to look at sustainable infrastructure and working with well-established mining companies. So these would be our 3 pillars of growth.
Thank you for taking time to give us an interview. This was Mr. Vivek, Director East and Pacific Asia, IFC. This was Gogo Mongolia live from the State Palace, Mongolian Economic Forum 2016. Thank you.